Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe, and while you're at it, head over to our Patreon page to join the official Two in a Zoo fan club. Go to support2inazoo.com for more info. Here we go.
Welcome to this episode of Q&A, the homeschool edition. We've received a lot of questions regarding homeschool, how it works, why we do it, would we do it all through high school.
And a lot of those questions come from people who are actually considering homeschool themselves. So we hope we can provide you a light at the end of the tunnel if that's what you're considering. Let's get down to the questions. So we maintain that we are not the professional source for answers to homeschool related topics. Like, all we can tell you is how we do things. And like all families that we have met, everyone has their own way of doing this. There is not a one-size-fits-all approach. Not everyone uses the same curriculum. Not everyone uses the same schedule. So all we're going to do is tell you how we do it. We can't provide any official answers because it's up to you as the parent to figure out what works for your child. And homeschool does not work for all children. We know plenty of people like us, Christian homeschool families, who had to put like maybe one of their children through public school when everyone else was homeschooled because homeschool just didn't work for that one child. So that's a disclaimer we want to put at the beginning of this video. This is not a one-size-fits-all thing. But without further ado, we have 5 questions we want to get down to. So the first is from Gabrielle. She said, I live in Australia and I am a school teacher. I love hearing about how people homeschool because I strongly believe that it allows children to flourish in a way that they may not be able to in public or private school setting. Where you live, does the government or county provide any financial support to you for homeschooling? Like, for instance, funding for textbooks or resources you might need to teach or for a curriculum?
The short answer is no, they don't. Basically,
we wish they did.
Right. Our whole setup was paid out of pocket.
Yeah.
Our curriculum is paid out of pocket.
And that's a good thing because, at least in America, when the government gives you money, they begin to regulate the heck out of you. They can come in and really take over everything you're doing. So it would very quickly turn into homeschool being just like public school, and there'd be nothing special about it, quite honestly. While it would be nice if they helped, it's better for homeschooling in general that they don't, and that they just leave it to parents to fund themselves and figure out for themselves. And before I move on, I really think it's awesome, Gabrielle, that you say that as a teacher, you believe homeschool affords children, what did you say, allows them to flourish in a way that public or private school might not. That is so true. And most people assume that the institution is always better. We believe that the family unit is always better, and that the institution, all the institution can do is try and mimic what mom and dad could do if mom and dad had time to teach themselves. So that's just awesome to hear you say that. So question number 2. My name is Kim. I am a mom of 2. I have 2 boys, 9 and 11. I work from home and I always think about homeschool, but I have my own fears. I wonder how this works for college acceptance / what would it affect a child's ability to get accepted into college? Also, I'm interested in Florida Virtual School, and I wonder if you know anything about Florida Virtual School. I do work, but thankfully my boys are getting older and can work semi-independently. Any guidance or advice would be welcome. As always, thanks for sharing your lovely family, your positivity, and your Christian values. You are better than TV. That is an awesome comment. Keep up the awesome work. Okay, so Florida Virtual School. Funny story, I used to work for Florida Virtual School for 9 months as a contractor or something like that. It was a long time ago. But we know a little bit about Florida Virtual School. You can be a homeschool. And my understanding, at least with what I used to know, and this is not current, so you need to do your research. My understanding is that homeschoolers can use it. It is state funded too. Even though Florida Virtual School is all online, they get funding from the state. So bear in mind, they still are regulated. So it is different than homeschool in that regard. There's still, I think, standardized testing maybe and things like that you don't have when you do pure homeschool. But it is a good option for kids that are older. If you're nervous about teaching chemistry, physics, or certain mathematics that are more advanced, Algebra 2, Calculus, Trig, then Florida Virtual School is going to be a great option because they're going to help you with those things that maybe you're nervous about teaching. They're going to be able to teach your child that. So I would look into it, especially your boys are approaching middle school age. definitely check into it. The other part of your question about college acceptance, it doesn't affect it at all. We know tons of homeschool students that have gone on to go to state universities and be very successful. One of the ones we know is studying nanotechnology at Florida Polytech. We know a bunch of them. Some who have gone to UCF, some who have gone to USF. It doesn't affect it at all. You just need to do your research and have evaluations and make sure your child is doing all the things that your county requires of you wherever you live, and your child will have access to the same college education as everyone else.
If you're looking to get a diploma instead of a certificate of completion, that's one thing that will be different. So you can look under like umbrella schools or some co-ops will give you a certificate or accredited programs like what we do as a Becca Academy. So those options will give you a diploma. Otherwise, you'll get a certificate of completion. My understanding is both of them will work. It just depends on if you want that diploma or if you don't care.
We're going to pursue the diploma. We want our kids to have a high school diploma just like everyone else. We don't want there to be any excuse for anyone to say they don't have a high school education. So you'll want to look into a, like we said, an umbrella school or something of that nature to where your child gets a high school diploma. Okay, question 3 from Lakshana. How long would you homeschool your kids? We're assuming you mean for how many more years?
Basically, at the end of school year, we give our kids options if they want to continue or not. That basically means Caleb right now. He's old enough to make that decision. The other ones are not. So we asked Caleb if he wants to go to regular school or if he wants to continue with homeschool. Every year he has like hands down said homeschool. And he's thriving so much that I don't see that changing. We are looking at to see if we can dabble into a co-op or not. This year, just to change it up a little bit. The commitment level on this particular co-op is very minimal, so it's not going to take away from being able to do sporadic trips and things like that. So we're still going to have freedom, but we are going to be able to have more of like the creative elements that will be able to facilitate those.
Question 4, how will you homeschool them when they are in higher grades? Will you hire teachers or teach via online? We will do, there's a few different things we can do. There are so many resources. Bear in mind, whenever your child's learning out of a book, you have the teacher book with all the answers, and it teaches you how to teach. I mean, it's a full curriculum not only for your child, but the books teach you how to be a teacher. And a lot of people aren't aware that that's the other half of the curriculum that you get, the teacher pack. And there are things you can do. You can bring in private tutors, but that's more for like if your child's having an issue or they can't learn from you, or you maybe just need that tutor to help clear out a mental log jam they have. And maybe that tutor can come in and show you how to do things a little differently for your child. But, you know, we don't hear about that happening too often. The materials and the resources online are so thorough these days, more than ever before, that everyone we know who has taught a child through all the way until college says it's not hard. It's we make it way harder in our minds as the parents or as the people who think people shouldn't be homeschooling than it really is. It's far more easier. And then will we pursue online? We might do something like Florida Virtual School for certain classes. We don't know. That's the beauty of homeschooling, is we can take it 1 year at a time to figure out what's working for each child and develop a custom plan for each one of them. There's also a Becca Academy, which is what we're doing now. Caleb has a video that he watches every day where a teacher has pre-recorded all the lessons, and he's learning from that teacher in a video, and then he's taking what he learned and he's opening a workbook and he's completing all the work based on what he's learned, and then Melanie goes back and checks it. Melanie helps him get over any hurdles that maybe he didn't pick up on a certain thing. She'll have him go back and watch a video or watch a certain point of a certain video if he clearly didn't get something he was supposed to get. So it allows him to learn from someone who's not even Melanie, a virtual teacher, right here in the physical homeschool room with Melanie as almost like a teacher's assistant, right? You're the teacher and a teacher's assistant, and she'll go to the whiteboard that we have over here and really break down certain things, especially if it's math that you need to kind of see how things work,
Right.
right? So Abeka Academy is awesome. Logan's going to do Abeka Academy next year, and Katie might also. Katie, because Katie watches Caleb do his videos, she seems really interested in how that works. So, and everything that she's seen so far, like leapfrog and all that stuff, she likes learning from videos and seems to flourish in that way. So we might do that with her. Her English is coming along fast enough that that could be a possibility for next year. But again, all of that stuff is things you take 1 year at a time.
Right.
If you have a child who's 5 or 8 and you're worried about high school, like, you need to think in the present.
Right.
How are you going
Yeah.
to do this coming year? Well,
Right.
how are you going to make this year work? The scriptures say, leave tomorrow's problems for themselves. They will, live in the here and now. Trust the Lord and seek first the kingdom of God, and all these things that you worry about will be added to you. Like, don't freak out. Stay in the here and now. And Melanie even needed to hear those questions a short 3 years ago when she started. She was asking the same questions, and we really both were, but she was the one a little too nervous about it. And we realized that all you can do is take it 1 year at a time, figure out the things that work best for your child, and make the current year the best year it can be. So that's a really big answer, but I think it speaks to the heart of what you're talking about options for how to teach your children, especially when they get older. And the topics get more difficult to teach in high school.
Abeka Academy in high school, you can actually handpick the subjects. So if you're not good in algebra, or if you're not good in chemistry, you can just handpick those topics or those subjects and just do videos there.
Yep.
So you can customize it, and that's really how we like to do homeschool. Is I grew up in it with Abeka. I went from kindergarten to 12th grade on Abeka, so I'm very familiar with that. But like what Mike said, the teacher handbook, you're really trying, the things that you're weak on, you pick up again really fast.
Yeah.
You're learning with your child, which doesn't seem as intimidating.
And just like when you were in high school, or I was in high school, or she was in high school, every year you register for classes. You choose your path. Like, not everyone takes, physics 2. Not everyone takes drama. All these things. Like, you choose some of your classes, and some of them are core classes that you must have. Algebra, geometry. Everyone had to have that. But then some of them are not required. You just have to have your math credits. So you choose from the classes that you're qualified for and that interest you and that meet the requirements of a high school diploma. So don't forget that. It's not that rigid of a program, just like it wasn't when you were in high school. There's some flexibility in choosing your course schedule year by year based on what you want and what's available. Okay, moving on to question 5. We're coming down the home stretch. What about the aspects like the following? How are you working on things like these? Peer tutoring, social skills, adjustment, life skills. So we're going to go back and forth and bounce between those things. And I think this question, it did not come from someone who's skeptical, but very often this question comes from people who are skeptical,
Right.
who think you should not homeschool because when you do, these are the things you lose out on. So let's talk about peer tutoring. And by peer tutoring, we're assuming you mean children teaching children. Peer tutoring, you're learning from your peers in an academic setting. So Melanie, how do our children learn from each other in an academic setting?
This year, Caleb has assisted Logan in some of his schoolwork, or when he's not understanding like special sounds. Caleb's done special sounds for 3 years now. So that's a good way, a good example of how Caleb has encouraged his brother.
I don't remember any peer tutoring happening when I was in public school. And I mean not once. Grades K through 12, I didn't learn from any other kids. So, but we are aware that sometimes kids learn best from other kids. There are times, like Melanie said, that Caleb will hear Logan maybe struggling with a sound or something, and he'll just turn around and say, "Logan, it sounds like this." And Logan picks it up because it came from another child and not mom. So I would actually say that stuff happens more in homeschool than it does in public school. Because I'll tell you, when there were 30 kids in the class, my teacher didn't want any of us talking to each other. She wanted us all to shut up and just be quiet and listen to her. And I'm talking, that was more often than not. The only way she could maintain control was if everyone was quiet and paid attention. So in homeschool, there's far more flexibility when there's only 4 voices in the room, 4 little voices, and 1 big voice. for that to happen. So peer tutoring, what happens way more in homeschool, in our opinion.
And it happens organically. You don't have to seek that out.
You don't have to sit two kids down and make them
right.
work on a project together. If speaking of that, there are going to be more opportunities in the coming grades for them to do group projects on things like science or history. Okay, number 2, social skills. I'm going to talk about this one. Social skills. That is the one thing. I'll tell you this. My sister homeschools her children and has done so for 15 years now. She has one adult son who she started homeschooling when he was very young. So, yeah, she had probably homeschooled him for a total of 13 or 14 years. And I watched him grow up incredibly adjusted. He's one of the most self-respecting and other-respecting young men I've ever known. I love you, Johnny, by the way. We both do. He had no social hindrance to his life because he was home. I think we get the idea that when our kids go to be around other kids, that's positive social interaction, and that's good social interaction. But sometimes it's just not. It's bad. I remember when we put our kids in preschool, they didn't pick up good things from other kids. They didn't pick up one good thing from other kids. You know what they picked up? All the bad stuff. Mm-hmm. They came home and started telling lies. I mean, I'm talking at 3 and 4 years old. They come home and they start throwing tantrums and picking their nose and telling lies and hiding stuff from mommy and daddy. They picked up all the bad stuff. And we really had to struggle to see where they picked up the good stuff. Now we know that social interaction does things like teaches your child how to overcome adversity when they're being bullied. Because let's face it, bullying I won't call it a normal part of growing up, but there are always bullies everywhere. Yeah. And our children have to learn to deal with adversity, whether it's from a bully or not getting along with your teacher. Not everyone has a positive experience with their teacher, and you have to sometimes learn to be able to sit down and listen to a teacher you wish you didn't have. There's things like that those are social interactions that teach your child how to deal, how to just how to respond to life when you don't get your way. Well, I'll tell you one thing we're good at is making sure our kids don't always get their way. So there's plenty of social interaction in terms of our kids having to overcome adversity, because even though they don't bully each other and they're very sweet to each other, none of them get their way, especially in a large family. With 4 kids, all of them are being told no, because there's no way all 4 of them can get their way at one time. So they're all learning how to mentally deal with the fact that the world doesn't revolve around me, which is one of the huge benefits of social interaction that you get when you put your kid in a brick and mortar school. But I feel like they're getting that here. And additionally, they go to church. They're in soccer. All 4 of them are going to play soccer in August, and Katie is interested in taking gymnastics. And I could see Logan in gymnastics, honestly, the way the kid tumbles and flips around and stuff.
Like a ninja warrior.
Yeah. Our gymnastics, one of the local places does gymnastics, and they have a ninja warrior class. So, yeah, I can see Logan wanting to be in that. But there's plenty of opportunity there for social interaction. We take them to the park. They meet kids at the park. They make friends at the park. They
make friends everywhere.
They make friends everywhere they go. Yeah, we go to Chick-fil-A and they jump in the play place at Chick-fil-A, and they come back and they say, "Mom, I made a friend. Her name's Sally." And I mean, in 10 minutes, kids are so good at that. Those things that adults aren't always good at. Like they get social interaction everywhere they go. So social skills, there's no shortage of opportunity for a child to grow in their social standing and in their understanding of society just by being homeschooled. We also, like Melanie said, are going to do a co-op probably, if not next year, then sometime in the future. And that's more opportunity for your child to go and be with other people and learn from other people who are not their mom and dad, and interact with other kids, some of which they will not get along with. And like I said, you actually learn more about social skills when you don't get along with people than when you do, right? Anyone can make a friend anywhere, but it's the toughness that you learn from social skills that sometimes is the most valuable lesson. So that's enough for social skills. Okay, so we covered peer tutoring, social skills, and now we'll talk about adjustment. Adjustment, kids are always having to adjust to changing things, like whether it's the requirements of a project that change, or or your family moves in the middle of your senior year. Like, life provides its own opportunities for adjustment that come along, whether it's the death of a family member, sickness, like mom and dad are sick and our school schedule had to change or something. Like, life affords you so many opportunities for adjustment that homeschool you can uniquely provide where public school can't. I'll give you an example. Public school, you show up every single day, Monday through Friday. Wednesday is an early release day. You know the day school starts. You know the day the school ends. You know all 15 holidays throughout the year. So there's not a lot of opportunity to have to readjust your whole schedule, your whole way of thinking mid-year, because everything is so laid out. Because it has to be. If it weren't, public school would be crazy. It'd be like a circus. And even when your teacher's sick, a substitute magically shows up and is there to handle everything, hopefully the way the teacher did, to do the lesson plan the same way, and nothing changes. There is no having to adjust to anything. Homeschool? Please. Every single day is adjustment, because if mommy's sick, we have to figure out maybe how to do things on our own and know my assignments that I need to pick. Or maybe daddy has to teach that day and daddy does things different because maybe daddy's a little more strict and daddy wants to do everything on the board because mommy's usually auditory and daddy's kinetic or whatever. I mean, every single day is an opportunity to have to adjust. And then when things happen like you lose loved ones, right? Or you have to travel for business, or you have to go on a family vacation because you hit a milestone trip. So out of nowhere, you're gone for a week and you have to bring homeschool with you on the road and do homeschool from a cabin somewhere or something. Those are things that actually cause you to stop your routine, break out of your routine, and then adjust to some other way of doing it, hopefully before eventually coming back into your routine. And those are things that teach you to be flexible in life and not take everything so seriously and not be so rigid that you become a stoic monster rather than a human who is changing and dealing with an ever-changing world around them. I think homeschool offers you way more opportunity to teach your children to be flexible and to deal with what life throws at you than does traditional education. Okay, so peer tutoring, social skills, adjustment, and lastly, life skills. Let's talk about life skills. Homeschool. How can homeschool help teach life skills?
Life skills. Well, art is not a surprise if you watch this channel at all. Our kids have chores. So they are responsible for their room, for their bathroom. They are responsible for getting their clothes down. If their clothes are not down, I don't do laundry for them. So they have to throw their clothes downstairs or bring them downstairs to me. So if they don't have clean underwear. They don't have clean clothes. And that's on them, not on me.
Yeah.
So we are teaching them responsibility. All of them know how to load a dishwasher, load a washer and dryer, fold clothes. They all know how to do that, minus Timmy.
But he's coming along.
He is. He's coming along. He knows how to put his shorts and and socks and underwear in drawers. So life skills is not something that we.
It's not just in the homeschool room.
Right. We integrate it throughout the day. There is consequences if you leave a mess. Caleb, each year, we didn't do it this year because of Katie coming home, but most years we do a cooking something.
Yeah.
So
I was going to say we cook a lot with them.
Mm-hmm. So last year we did pilgrim bread, and so he made pilgrim bread, and we've done science experiments, and we've done things that you can actually see. You do something and there's a reaction if it's a good consequence or a bad consequence, and so those are the things that we're trying to instill in our children. And it's very organic. This is not something that I set on a lesson plan and say, okay, I need to teach my children X, Y, and Z. No, if they're old enough to take responsibility, then they have responsibilities.
Yeah, you know what's so funny, and I'm just thinking about this now. When you're in public school or private school, we take our kids out of life for 8 hours a day. We put them in a classroom, and then we teach them about life. Mm-hmm. Homeschool lets you teach them about life while they're still in it, at home, living it. You know what I mean? You teach them life as you're living it together, and rather than this weird thing where we take them out of life momentarily, put them in a room with white walls, and then on a board we draw, or in a movie we show them what life is all about. Isn't that such a weird way of doing things? We take them on field trips as often as we can, and even when they're not planned, and we realize that we're going somewhere where there could be some educational benefit to the place we're going. Oh, we want to go to the farmer's market because Melanie just wants to buy fresh vegetables. Well, while we're there, the farmer's nice enough that he'll give them a tour of the barn or tell them about what it's like to raise your own cattle. There's opportunities everywhere to teach your children. People ask, how are you teaching Katie English? And the answer to that is every single moment of every single day. Every single moment as we go, she'll ask a question and I'll gently correct her sentence structure, and then I'll give her a high five for saying it right. And the whole time I'm being kind and gentle, but as we go, we're teaching too. That's right. I mean, that's the beauty of homeschool. It's like you're teaching in life as life is happening. And it teaches your kids to realize that there's a world of learning around them. It's not just found in a classroom with my nose buried in a book. Yeah. It's found by going outside, smelling the air, and looking around at God's creation and finding opportunities to learn things that are new just through the daily course of living your God-given life. I think homeschool has gotten Melanie and I in touch with appreciating education in a way that we didn't even understand when we were in school, right? Yeah. I mean, it's just amazing. And hopefully we can pass along that love for education to our children, because they'll see that learning is not something you just do because the government makes you go to school, but learning is something you do because you
love learning.
It's fun, and there's so much to learn, and you're only limited by your decision not to learn. So, right. So I know we're kind of bridging outside the topic of life skills, but we just teach life skills constantly as we go. We look for opportunities in everything we do to teach them something that could be practical for their future, whether it's cooking and laundry and practical housekeeping type of skills that will make them well-adjusted adults, that will make Katie, Katie has said her dream is to grow up and be a mommy. Well, she's getting those life skills every day by having a little brother named Timmy, and by learning to do chores, and she'll also get the skills that could make her an engineer like Daddy one day if she chooses, whatever she wants. And then our boys are learning home ec type of skills that will make them the type of men that if they get married, they won't sit on their butts and do nothing. They will contribute and work with their wife and partner in things rather than making her do everything. That would be a nightmare to me if I raised little boys like that. So anyways, that's life skills, that's peer tutoring, that's social skills, that's adjustment. There's just, we have found out that homeschool is a beautiful world with unlimited possibilities. And I think I'm going to go back to what Gabrielle started us off with, where she said, I love hearing about how people in homeschool do homeschool, because I strongly believe that it allows children to flourish in a way that they may not have the opportunity in public and a private school setting. Just like with anything, you could do a pros and cons list for homeschool. You could do a pros and cons list for public school or for private school, or for some other third or fourth or fifth option. But we just love the benefits of homeschool so much that it outweighs the cons. Things like you got to pay for all the curriculum yourself. You got to sacrifice your time to teach your children. You have to be willing to think outside of the box. And if your child's not doing something right or learning something the way you think they should, think outside of the box and YouTube it and figure out a different way to teach them. Like you have to be selfless. You have to be willing to sacrifice. You have to be willing to overcome your fears, all the things that are telling you you can't do it, you shouldn't do it. You have to be willing to overcome the pressure of the probably hundreds of thousands of people that think you're an irresponsible parent by homeschooling your children. You have to overcome a lot. There are tons of cons that you have to overcome, but they all can be. And we are seeing that when you do commit to overcoming them, the world of homeschooling can just be a beautiful, beautiful place.
So that's it for this Q&A homeschool edition.
We hope you like this video. Give it a like, subscribe, comment, share. Keep sending your questions. If you have other things in our life or whatever that you want us to do a specialized Q&A episode on, we'd be happy to. we're happy to sit down and tell you why we're so weird and strange and unique and all that stuff. We love you guys, and we'll see you next time.